In this WeBWorK TA training video, I'm going to show you how to edit a PG file. And I'm going to actually choose a PG file that is currently taken from the open library through the library browser, which adds a little bit of an extra step to the process. So I will show you a few different ways of getting there, and there's really three of them. One way is to go through the file manager, and so here you would go directly down the path that you're interested in for editing the file. So you highlight the PG file and then you would click edit, and now I can edit my PG file here. So the next way, I won't edit for now, I'll go through the other two techniques and then edit on the third one. So another way of doing that is to go through the homework sets editor. Let's say you're working on a particular homework assignment, so I click on the problem list for the homework assignments, and maybe I want to view those, so I'm going to choose MathJax, which is a higher quality rendering, and I'm going to render all problems and look through these and decide, let's say, that I want to edit problem number 3. And so I'll click on edit problem, and it gives me, it's actually a slightly different edit interface than the other one. And that's because there are two concurrent versions of the editor interface. That's just because there's been a recent upgrade, I assume. And then the third way of editing a problem is when you're actually looking through a homework set and you're looking at problem number 1, and then you go to the next one. And this is actually what a student would see, except they wouldn't see this line. And then here's that problem that I decided I wanted to edit. Oh, okay, because I'm an instructor, I have the option of editing. Here are the two different edit interfaces. So I'm going to go with edit 3. That one's more familiar to me. And so here is the edit interface for that PG problem. So you'll notice there's a comment up here. This is reminding me that this is a library file and I can't write to the library. So what I'm going to have to do later is save this using the new version tab. So I'll go to new version and replace the current problem with a new one, and by default it simply adds local in front of the path that it would use for the library file, and that will actually be saved locally on this WeBWorK course. So now let's just go through the PG file and describe what's going on. The first block of comments here, which are always preceded with a pound sign, or in this case a double pound, but the double is not required. These comments are intended for the Open Library to use for its organization system. So the subject for this problem will be calculus, single variable, chapter differentiation, and derivatives of exponential functions is the section. And when you go into the Open Library, you'll see these will come down as pull-down options. And then more information about the author, etc. Then we start the document down here, and we load in some perl macros that may or may not be used in the rest of the PG file. There's a command here that may be useful for you. This is called the show partial correct answers. That's a built-in WeBWorK variable. If it's 0, then the partial answer information is not given, and if it's 1, it is given. That means that if a student is working on a problem with multiple parts and gets some of them right but some of them incorrect, when they submit the first or second or third time, they will be told, if this variable is set to 1, which of the parts they got correct and which they got incorrect. And so when they use their subsequent attempts, they can modify only the ones that they got incorrect. But you can set that to 0 if you don't want them to have that information. For example, if the parts depend on one another and would give them too much information about what the other answers might be. Okay, so further down in the problem, you see other variables defined. These are user-defined ones, and they're just called variable A and variable B, always preceded by a $sign. This is a random number call. This one is going to generate a random number between 1 and 5, and the step size between them is 1, which means they'll be integers. And then I multiply that here by random from -1 to 1 in a step of 2, which means basically it puts a plus or minus sign in front of the first random number. And then B is 4 less than A. So then we start, those are defined in advance. Then we start the text, and this is in LaTeX mostly here. The $BR is a space command that gets translated into an HTML hard return. And you'll notice because $signs are used for variables in Perl, LaTeX is expecting only slash round bracket and slash square bracket for the $ and double $. That's if you still use the double $ and double $ to indicate math mode. So no $ for math modes here. So this is the question almost as it would appear in, let's say, a LaTeX formatting, and then a few hard returns here, and then finally in math mode x equals, and then this here is a way of specifying I'm expecting an answer, and the size of the answer box given to the student is determined by what's in the brackets here. So then we end the text, and now WeBWorK knows that we're waiting for an answer from the student, so we have to tell it what answer it should expect. And here, the answer that we're expecting is a numerical number, a numerical answer. In particular, the answer is the log of 3. Other possibilities here are, say, FUNCMP, which would be a function, and there would be a variable, let's say x or y, in the brackets here. And you can specify using the options for that function what the variable would be. So you can look that up using a WeBWorK PG syntax manual. The MAA has one, for example, and there are others available. And so if we had multiple questions here, let's say there was something else, we wanted the y value at that point. So just give the x coordinate. So I'd have to edit this to make the problem make sense, but let's say I wanted the y value, then I could add in another answer field, and it knows that the first answer rule is associated with the first answer function, and the second answer rule, or the second answer box, is associated with the second one. Now I obviously would have to edit this here, and I actually don't want to do that. Well, it wouldn't be too hard, would it? I can just copy this and place it in the brackets down here, and then a is the correct value, but for x, I want to replace x by natural log of 3 in both places. And that needs a multiplication sign. And now I am going to save this new version in the local folder. So that seemed to work. And so we can close that, and now we can look at the problem as a student may see it, and I broke something. What did I break? So there were a couple mistakes in this answer expression. So the first one is a syntax issue. I copied this expression from the LaTeX version above, and what that means is Perl would not understand it very well. So among the problems, I have to have a multiplication sign there. Now I'm not too sure how many of these were necessary, because this actually didn't end up fixing the problem, but I also needed some parentheses added, and I think I'll leave that one off. Well, let's leave that one off just to see. Now, even this as an answer, because of the setting that I'm using for NUM-CMP, the standard or the default option for that one is that you must submit a simplified answer. So by having e to the log 3 as part of my answer, it's impossible for a student to get that right. So what I have to do is, at the very least, I have to change that to 3, or preferably change this whole thing to 6. And then this is an acceptable answer for the answer key, and so I'm going to update that and take action to save it. And now, when I go back to answer it, so here we want the log of 3, and here we want 5 plus 6 minus 3 times natural log of 3. And I'm going to show my correct answers, show the correct answers, and check. And now you see we got it right. So the problem was both syntax and the settings on numcomp, which require that the students simplify things as much as possible. And you can read the different versions, different levels of strictness that are available for that function if you're interested. Okay, so that is the end of my description here of editing a PG file.